The sermon today is entitled The Theology of the Mensch, and it was written by Tony Larsen, who at the time was a UU minister in Racine, Wisconsin. I say to you that every one of you is sitting on a ticket that you can take to a wonderful place. If you'll just get off your rear and use it. Each of us has a ticket to Mensch, which is a state of being which is the greatest treasure you possess. Only you sit on it too much of the time. Before I explain Mensch, what it means, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the language from which it comes. Yiddish, the language of European Jews from about 1000 Common Era to the middle 1900s. Yiddish is not the same as Hebrew, although it does have some Hebrew words in it. After about 600 CE, Jews generally spoke the languages of whatever lands that they lived in. But around 1000, the Jews in the West began to speak a dialect, mostly German, but part Hebrew and part Slavic, and eventually part English, called Yiddish, from Yid, an old German word meaning Jew. It's amazing how many Yiddish words have gradually made their way into the English language. But perhaps even more significant has been the Yiddish effect on English syntax and word order. Here are a few examples of Yiddish English or Yinglish. All right already. Okay by me. It shouldn't happen to a dog. On her, it looks good. This I need like a hole in the head. He knows from nothing. I should be so lucky. Or how often have you heard someone repeat a word but with an SH in front of it, like fat schmat as long as you're happy, or Vassar schmasser, she's still a schlub. One of my favorite stories is the one about the mother who was commiserating with her friend Sheila about her grown son Arnold. Sheila, she says, I don't know what to do. My son, he's seeing a psychiatrist, and this psychiatrist is telling him, Arnold, you've got an Oedipus complex. And Sheila replies, oh, Oedipus schmedipus, as long as he loves his mother. Some Yiddish words have become pretty standard expressions. Klutz, chutzpah, schmaltz, schnoz, although I confess I haven't heard schnoz in a long time, and Jimmy Durante, I know, and schmooze. That schmooze means having a heart-to-heart chit-chat, as in they had a little schmooze and settled everything. One Yiddish word that hasn't yet gotten the familiarity that it deserves is Mensch. In German, the word Mensch simply means a person or a human being. But in Yiddish, it has a very positive overtone, and it means something like a real human being or a truly good and caring person. One way to get an idea of what a Mensch is to see what a Mensch is not. A Mensch is not a Nebish, or a Nebish, depending upon how you say it. A Nebish is someone who is dissatisfied with everything, feels cheated all the time, and has nothing positive to contribute to any situation. There's an old Yiddish proverb that says, better 10 enemies than one Nebish. The Nebish says, why go to the movies? If it's any good, you can't get in. Don't learn too much. The less you know about what you're missing, the better off you'll be. But probably not. You'll be wondering anyway. Although I think I might take that one to heart, the less I know. There's an old expression, into every life some rain must fall. But some people install their own sprinkler systems. Well, that pretty much describes the Nebish. He rains on his own parade. He always expects things to turn out badly, and if they turn out well, he finds something bad in that. The Mensch is just the opposite. She expects things to turn out well, and when they don't, she finds something positive in it anyway. Like the driver who just misses a green light and has to wait until the light turns green again. She just smiles and says, "Great, now I'll be first in line." A Mensch is a real human being, is someone who's a blessing wherever she goes. She is by nature caring and helpful, and usually isn't even aware of how much a Mensch she is. To quote from Jean Houston's book, The Possible Human, when a Mensch walks down the street, even the sidewalk feels good. A Mensch is not a hero, because a hero is a one-shot deal, while the Mensch is forever. A Mensch, when a nebbish comes to the door, tells him a joke. By now, of course, you realize that there are very few full-time Mensches around. But there is a little Mensch in everyone. You've got a ticket to the Mensch in you, if only you'd stop sitting on it. Get it out. Fly. And to help you see how you might do that, I'd like to tell you what Rabbi Hillel said 2,000 years ago in the, and I may be pronouncing this wrong, Pirkei Avot. Okay, I haven't been corrected. That's from the Jewish Talmud, or commentary on the Bible, and I think it's a recipe for menschness. Rabbi Hillel said, "If I am not for myself, who will be? If I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when?" If I am not for myself, who will be? A Mensch respects himself. He cares about who he is and what he stands for. A Mensch knows that no one else can hand you a blueprint for your life. No book can either. As Rabbi Zuzia put it, on Judgment Day, God will not ask me why I wasn't Moses. Rather, God will ask me why I wasn't Zuzia. No one can tell you to be a Moses or a Mother Teresa. You can't live your mother's life, your father's life either. Your life, according to your values, is the only life that you can live. If I am only for myself, what am I? So, a Mensch knows that the real treasure is to be found in yourself, but he or she also knows that if you keep it to yourself, it ceases to be a treasure. There's another story from the Talmud that tells how God decided to locate the holy city of Jerusalem, where his temple would be built. Time before time, when the world was young, there were two brothers who shared a field and a mill. Each night they divided the grain they had ground together. They divided it evenly. One brother lived alone. The other had a large family. Now, one day the single brother thought to himself, "It isn't really fair to divide the grain evenly. I have only myself to care for, but my brother has children to feed." So each night he secretly took some of his grain and put it in his brother's granary. But one day the married brother said to himself, "It isn't fair that we divide the grain evenly, because I have children to provide for me in my old age, but my brother doesn't." So he began every night to take some of his grain and put it in his brother's granary. Then one night they met each other halfway between their two houses, and they suddenly realized what had been happening. And then what could they do but embrace each other in love? The legend is that God witnessed their meeting and proclaimed, "This is a holy place. It is here that my temple shall be built." If not now, when? A student asked the rabbi, Rabbi, when should a person repent? And the rabbi replied, you should repent on the last day of your life. But, said the student, we can't be sure which will be the last day. The rabbi smiled and said, then the answer is simple. Recapture your heart today. A Mensch doesn't wait around for the right opportunity. She makes the present opportunity the right one. And she doesn't dwell on all the possible problems that may come her way. A Mensch knows that you can't protect yourself from every possible problem. The only thing worrying about the future does is keep you from being a Mensch in the present. A Hasidic story tells of a Russian rabbi who studied and prayed for years. He pondered the mysteries of the universe and all the deepest religious questions. Having come to the conclusion that he really didn't know where he was going in his life, he encountered the town Cossack, who was walking across the square. When the Cossack, who was in a bad mood, by the way, asked him, where do you think you're going? The rabbi replied honestly, I really don't know. The Cossack, madder than ever, said, every morning at exactly the same time you've crossed this square on your way to the synagogue to pray, and you're telling me you don't know where you're going? I'll teach you to make a fool out of me. And with that, he threw the rabbi in jail. Then, just as the Cossack was about to leave, the rabbi said, I told you the truth, didn't I? You just never know. How can you be a Mensch today? Since you don't ever know where you might end up, you need to start with the present moment. Whether in a Russian jail cell, at home with your family, or out among strangers, what can you do that will bring out the best in others? You don't need a special set of plans to carry this out, but you do need a decision that this is the kind of human being that you want to be. Then when you get up in the morning and say, today will be a Mensch day, and let things take their course, the opportunities will come. Someone you're normally nasty toward or whom you regularly ignore, you'll ask how they're doing, or you'll notice something positive in them, and you'll bring it to their attention. If you normally dominate a conversation, trying to impress people with how bright you are, you listen more and bring others out. You don't have to be particularly learned to be a Mensch. All you need is a little spirit, a little chutzpah, a willingness to give it your best shot. A Mensch looks for brightness in the other and then helps the other recognize it too. A Mensch is someone who sees the Mensch in you. Yes, there are a lot of Mensches around. The truth is there are people all around you with no visible scars who are hurting and who need the presence of a real human being to Mensch, to affirm them. Try this little experiment with everyone you meet today, whether it's people you know well or strangers. Imagine that you can see inside them a bright light and a wound. If you remember to see these in all the people you contact, I think you'll find that becoming a Mensch comes fairly naturally. All people have a bright light inside them, a goodness, a brightness, a Menschness. They also have a wound, which sometimes keeps them from shining as brightly as they otherwise might. When you have problems with your spouse, a family member, or a stranger who cuts ahead of you in line, see that inside of them is this great light, this potential Mensch. And see also that they carry a wound you may never completely understand. It may be a physical wound, like cancer or AIDS. It may be more invisible, like abuse or neglect. or a desperate need for continual attention because they never quite got the affirmation they needed as a child. When people do something annoying that really tests your patience, remember, it's just their wound, which keeps their light from shining clearly. Now, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't say anything about their annoying behavior. They may need to hear it, and you should confront it. But if you remember their light and their wound, you'll confront them like a Mensch. So any day you want to be a Mensch, remember that all the people you see have a ticket to Mensch, which you can encourage them to use. And they have a wound which you can help heal through a listening ear or a holding hand. And remember that you also have a light and a wound. So be a Mensch to yourself, too, okay? You are a Mensch. Maybe you're only a quarter-time Mensch right now. But I guarantee you could at least be half-time. So get off your ticket and go to it.